What's up, everybody? We are back talking some redraft fantasy football. I don't know. It kind of feels like the dynasty offseason is kind of coming to an end a little bit. I don't know if you've done your rookie draft, I guess. We're getting to that kind of that dead period. The schedule's been released, and I know there's OTAs going on, but those are going to be ending soon. And then we have about 6 weeks of silence. But as always, joined by my brother and our father, Brian. Jeff, how's it going, guys?
How's everybody doing?
Great. Talk some football.
Talking some football. How's it's May 18th today, so I feel like Memorial Day?
Memorial Day coming
Memorial
up.
Day. Yeah, 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. I feel like it's like the unofficial start of summer, even though it's still technically spring, but kind of feels like that.
Yep, definitely. I know. I actually kind of forgot that it was happening because I'm actually going to be out of town on Memorial Day, and that was totally by accident.
Yeah, it's the unofficial, and then the unofficial end is Labor Day, right? Right when football season starts. So we're getting there. We're getting closer. Not too far away now, but
it's 100 days until college football starts.
Exactly
100 exactly?
Yes.
Right. That'll be fun. I think we're going to actually, Dad, I haven't told you, but I think we're going to do like a mini preview of, some of the high draft prospects expected for the 2024 draft. That always changes, but it's interesting to look at who's kind of regarded as the top guys. But we'll get into that another time. Today, we're kind of looking at some players, some trends. I don't know, some players that either regressed negatively in 2022 from the 2021 season, or they had a big jump in 2022 compared to previous years or the 2021 season. We're going to just talk about if we think it's kind of if we believe it or not, if it's which one they're kind of closer to. It should make sense as we go on. So we're just going to start off, as always, with the quarterback position. And the first guy we're going to talk about is Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert in 2021 was QB2 overall. He averaged 23.3 points per game, and I believe that's in 4 point per passing touchdown. I think 6 point, he was over 26 points. And then in 2022, he was QB11 and averaged only 17 points a game in 4 point per passing touchdown. Brian, if you had to choose if he's going to be closer to QB2 or closer to QB11 in 2023, what would you be choosing?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a hard number, because I do think he's going to be somewhere in between. I'd say, I'm just going to put the faith in him. I'm going to say he'll be closer to 2 than he will be 11.
Yeah. A lot of that does depend on other guys, getting injured and things like that. So I guess you can look at it. Is he going to be closer to 23 points a game or 17 points a game? If that makes it a little easier to digest, because it was a down year for quarterbacks in 2021.
Yeah, for sure. I would bank on the 23 points per game from him. I feel like he's almost a lock. For 20, I feel like, this last year we saw him not really throw as much down the field. I was looking at his pass attempt numbers and stuff, and I was kind of tripping out on it. He had 699 pass attempts. That was just what? That's crazy. And so, that obviously that helped his yardage numbers out. We kind of expect, 4,500 plus from him, which is, not necessarily an easy thing to do. But I think where he regressed a lot was his touchdowns. He had no rushing touchdowns, which, he's not a huge rushing touchdown guy, but I think he had 5 in his first year and 3 last year. So, so 25 total touchdowns, all passing. And it was just kind of you kind of expect those numbers to be a bit higher for him. In order for him to really hit his ceiling, obviously, he's going to need to get those up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's totally within the realm of possibility. I think it just was kind of a bit of a down year. He was banged up with the ribs. His receivers were all banged up. And yeah, I mean, now they added Quentin Johnston. So I think I like him better to be quarterback 2 than 11. But I think he'll be somewhere in between, honestly. I think he's a good value to grab at like quarterback, 7 or 8, wherever he's going to go this year.
Yeah. Dad, do you agree with that? He's closer to averaging 23 points a game than he is 17 that he averaged last year.
Yeah. We seen it. You know, he had that rib injury. Was it like week 2 or week 3? And he kept on playing through it, but we could tell, you know, because we watched their games a lot, and you could tell he wasn't the same type of person and stuff like that. And I know he was dinking and dunking to Eckler quite a bit. And, you know, like Brian says, the wide receivers, you know, there was quite a period of time where they both weren't playing those. And, you know, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, they big parts of the offense. So
he only had both those guys on the field in the same time 7 games last year. So
pretty amazing they even made it to the playoffs, even though they laid an egg in the playoffs.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that just kind of speaks to his ceiling. Also, it's like he didn't have his 2 main guys, and you know, obviously, it was a product of just tons of attempts. Like I said, like 700 attempts, but he still got over 4,700 yards, like with like jacked up ribs and, you know, not a healthy receiving core. So I think that's, you know, if he does that when he's bad, you know, or quote unquote bad, then it's like, yeah, I definitely think he can do a little better there for sure.
Yeah. Moving on, I agree with you guys. I think he's going to be closer to. I don't think he'll be QB2 just because you need probably a few injuries for that to happen.
Well, I thought
closer to the 23 points.
I thought another thing that was kind of obvious, like you did mention, it was kind of a down year for quarterbacks in general. And I know the next guy we're going to talk about, but basically there wasn't a whole lot of difference between quarterback 12 and quarterback 5, who we're about to talk about, like in terms of points per game or total points. It's like literally like 2 points a game or something. So
it happens a lot, actually. I think where there's like 12 to like 6 or something are very, very close. The next guy we are talking about is Geno Smith. Averaged 18.5 points last year, was QB5 last year. Obviously, you know, he didn't really start because he was a backup for several years. So we don't have his 2021 numbers because I don't even know if he threw a pass. But what do you guys think? And Dad, I'll start with you. Geno Smith, QB5, maybe not QB5, but do you expect him to average around the same points as he did last year, about 18.5 points per game?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably his ceiling. And I know the team, Seattle, started pretty well about halfway through. Then they had a little rougher second half. I'm not sure if it was related to quarterback play. I don't follow the Seahawks enough, but you know, just looking at some of his numbers, I mean, he looked consistent. You know, I mean, he didn't knock it out of the park the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season, but the team, I feel the team has gotten better. You know, their receiving core, adding JSN to the slot, the rookie running back again. You know, they got 2 good running backs, and so I see no reason for him not to repeat what he had. You know, 30 touchdowns, so that's 4,200 yards. Those are all reachable goals.
Yeah, Brian, I was just checking while Dad was talking. So his best ball ADP which was last updated. Oh, this is a couple weeks ago, but it was around QB 16.
Okay.
So if you had to put money on him finishing QB 5 or finishing QB 16, what would you be putting your money on there?
Honestly, I'd probably go closer to QB 16. I think he is going to be like the nice thing about him, like you see what the upside is, I guess. 4,230 touchdowns is, that's great. Like I think that's in a normal year, that's more of a low end top 12 guy. Like I feel like he's like maybe like a top 10 to 15 sort of guy. But I mean, their offense obviously is getting better. Like they added Charbonnet and they added JSN. So like you definitely can see the path to it happening. But the nice thing is you don't have to draft him as, QB5, like you said, like QB 16. Like I don't mind that because I think he'll outperform QB 16, but I think he will be closer to 16 than 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice thing about him is, he gives you sneaky rushing production too. His 3 years starting, back in 2013, 2014, and then this last year in 2022, you add all those together, he averages 323 yards rushing a season. So it's a solid rushing floor there. What's that? 20 yards a game, or between what? You do the math, Brian. You're the math guy, but I guess I can do real quick. Yeah, about 20 yards a game.
Okay.
20 yards a game. So there's some value there. Obviously, you're not going to get exactly 20 every game. You could get a 50-yarder game where he gives you. But even if he gets 20 yards every game, there's 2 extra points you're getting on the ground from him. So is a 70% completion percentage? Is that high? It sounds high, but I don't. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that is really high.
That's what he had last year. It was 69.8. So
he led the NFL in completion percentage last year, 69.8.
Okay.
So
I figured that was high. I just wanted to make sure, because I'm thinking like quarterbacks like that are at least good. It's like 65% or something.
That's kind of surprising. I never would have thought that from him. Good stat that you pulled up.
Yeah, for instance, Mahomes is 67.1. If you talk about like Joe Burrow, if good quarterbacks are above 65. Joe Burrow was 68.3, 70.4 in 2021. But yeah, 69.8 is really good if you're getting close to 70. So and that includes, by the way, it's one of the stats I like about PFF is they have a adjusted completion percentage because that includes throwaways. If you're spiking the football, that includes spiking the football. That includes drops from your receivers. So like his adjusted is probably closer to like 80%, which is pretty crazy.
Okay.
Wow. That's
yeah. Like he probably shouldn't
feel a lot different about him then.
Yeah, he was super accurate. I remember people saying that. I didn't realize he led the NFL, but I like Geno, like you said, late. Backing up, what if you get like an Anthony Richardson and pair him with a Geno Smith,
Yeah, I think that's okay a good pairing.
But
you don't have to break the bank to get him either.
Yeah, I mean that's what you're saying, like QB 16, right? So, moving on to running backs, we're gonna talk about Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs in 2021 was RB14. He averaged 13.5 points in half PPR. This is for half PPR. Which is solid, RB14. And then he jumped all the way up to RB3 in 2022, averaging 17.8 half PPR points per game. So over 4.5 more half PPR points per game. Brian, if you had to bank on Josh Jacobs being RB3 or RB14, what are you banking
on? Yeah, I'd probably say closer to 14. I mean, RB3 is such a high, that's such a high mark to play. And you can kind of you can just think about who goes in front of him. It's like, well, you're definitely taking McCaffrey. I would assume Bijan, Eckler, Saquon. It's like, well, that puts him 5 already, and you can definitely make cases for a few other guys. I'd say even Chubb could be in there.
What about the average points then? If we want to take out The RB finish is always hard to predict, but maybe the points. I think that's a little more important.
Yeah, honestly, like I think he literally, like, I think he falls like right in the middle of there. Like I think this coming year, like he's not gonna have as many rush attempts. So he had 340 rush attempts last year, which is crazy. And then I added up his average from the previous seasons, and he was averaging around 290. So it's like, yeah, probably closer to 300, which is only, what is that? 2.5 attempts per game less. Like, I think his receptions, I think that's going to continue, like, to be just fine. Like, or yeah, just like him being like targeted the last couple of seasons, like catching over 50 balls. Like, I think that's decently safe. Like maybe not 50, but like, I don't know. I wouldn't say like he's like a lock for that, but I can easily see that happening.
Yeah.
And one thing that I thought was kind of interesting about him, like, so he got 12 touchdowns last year. They were all rushing, which I'm like, okay, like that's pretty impressive. I think to be RB3 with 12 touchdowns. I don't know. I know 12 is not a small number, but it's not like a crazy number either. So it's kind of like, especially if he's involved in the passing game. And then I kind of looked, like, he's actually never caught a touchdown before. Did you guys ever just notice that in the stats?
I did see that, yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of interesting. So it's like, yeah, I think he could still get 12 touchdowns and, 1,400 total yards, like pretty reliably.
Total yards?
So I think that. What's that?
1,400 total? He had 2,000 last year. Total
yeah,
yards.
I know. Yeah, I'm just trying to be a little bit more realistic about it.
Okay. Yeah, I'd probably go closer to like 1,700 total. But that's fair. Dad, what do you think about Josh Jacobs? Closer to averaging over 17.5 points or 17 points or 13.5?
Yeah, if I got to pick one or the other, I'm going to 13, 13.3. So I just think, he was like the Raiders' offense. A lot of it last year. Yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure if that's going to continue. I kind of do agree, and he was very involved with the passing game. So, I can kind of think that he'd have a good 1,600 yards total. Now we have another. You got a different quarterback situation. Is the offense going to change any or anything like that? I mean, they're not. They're still going to run the ball a lot, I believe. I don't know about passing. Josh Jacobs in the passing game, but I would lean to the lesser amount, 13.3.
Yeah, I think I would go closer to set 15, 17 points, just because, again, the 13 came in 2021. He missed a few games, it looks like, but that was only 870 yards or 58 yards a game. Like, I don't know. I think he's going to be more in the middle of like a 75 yards a game rushing and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see about Garoppolo though, because I was kind of quickly looking, and San Francisco running backs never had a lot of catches until McCaffrey last year, but that was mostly with Purdy. And I don't know if that's a Garoppolo thing or a Shanahan thing, or they didn't trust any of their running backs to catch the ball before McCaffrey. But yeah, I mean, a lot of San Francisco running backs, only catching 20, 30 passes. So that would be a big hit.
Yeah, that would be.
Another running back we're looking at is Najee Harris. Went from RB4 in 2022 with 15.5 PPR points. Fell to RB14 last year, 11.9 half PPR points. Dad, if you had to choose one of those in terms of the points, do you think he's closer to 15.5 or 12 points in half PPR?
I think 15.5. I think some of this is explainable. So his rookie year, let's go back to Najee's rookie year. Wasn't Roethlisberger still the quarterback?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he threw the ball to Najee. He caught a lot of passes. I mean,
He caught 74.
yeah, that's quite a bit for a running back, huge amount.
Yeah.
And last year it was only 41. So, and we know there was a little I don't know if we call it turmoil. Trubisky didn't last very long. So, and then Kenny Pickett came in. The guy had to learn how to quarterback in the NFL. So, I mean, there's a main reason for drop off. I know the Steelers have invested heavily into their offensive line in the off season. So, hopefully, the rushing yards were down by about 170 yards between 2021 and 2022. We'll see. There's no reason why Najee shouldn't be a 1,200 yard, 50, 60 reception back. But again, quarterbacks, you have to see what the offense is like. And but I'm going to lean that he's going to go for that higher number.
Yeah.
Of 15.5.
Okay. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean the spread's pretty small. So it's kind of like it's a little deceiving. Honestly, I think he's closer to the number, I guess I would say the lower one, the 11.9, just because I think he's closer to being an running back 14 over running back 4. I mean, we know he's going to get all the carries basically, which that went down a little bit last year, but it was pretty, it was pretty consistent. It was 307 versus 272 rush attempts. So it's you can probably pencil him in easily for, close to that 300 mark. But like Dad pointed out, it was the receiving that really took a dive. It was kind of funny, how similar his 2 seasons were. He still his rushing yards per attempt and stuff was sub 4 both years. He had 7 touchdowns each year. His long it was just all kind of wow, this all kind of matches up pretty nicely. So it was kind of obvious the big difference was I don't know if he goes back to being a 94 target 70 plus catch guy again. So I would definitely lean on the lower end, but I think he's solid. I think where you can get him, and as long as he's healthy, he's gonna get the work. So and so he's got the chance, and we all kind of have to assume the Steelers aren't going to be as bad as they were last year, just because they were so shitty.
Yeah. He did lead the league in touches in his rookie year, 381 touches, catches and carries. I'll probably go closer to the 15. Even if he doesn't get back to that 75 catch mark again, all he needs is in a half PPR league, 3 more touchdowns, and he could put up the exact same stats, get 3 more touchdowns, and that makes up for the 35, 34 less catches he had or whatever, right? So I can see him being a double-digit touchdown guy, no problem. Rushing touchdown or something like that. I know he had 10 both years, and his last 5 weeks, again, kind of a short sample size, but they started to get it together. Steelers were playing a little bit better. He took that metal plate out of his foot, and he was averaging 14.5 points per game. So, it is kind of small, but 3.5 points is also significant. Just go back and look at how many weeks do you lose by less than 3.5 points? There's probably a couple of them, right? Every year that you lose your week by less than 3.5 points. So,
definitely.
So, it doesn't seem like a lot, but then when you start thinking about it, if you have 2 guys that fall 3.5 points, now you're talking about 7 points, and you're probably 30-40% of your games are decided by 7 points. So, but I'll go the high end for him. Looking At receivers, we had Devonta Smith, and again in half PPR, he was wide receiver 29, averaged 9 points in 2021, and was wide receiver 10 in 2022, averaging 12.2. So not a huge difference, but 3.2 points more. Brian, what do you think about Devonta Smith? Do you think he's closer to averaging 9, 10 points or more like a 12, 13 point player per game?
Yeah, I think you can pencil him in for the 12 or 13 points. Like I'm a little bit. I think he can definitely do that. Like consistently. I think like the big thing was, like he is not like the main focus of the defense anymore necessarily. I mean, he can be. Like I think he was in like week 1 against Detroit, wasn't he? And they like completely shut him down last season. But yeah, like I think with AJ Brown being there, Jalen Hurts really taking a step forward as a passer. It's reasonable. I did do a little bit of like looking into. So I thought it was pretty crazy that AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, they had like a 60% target share between the two of them, which is like, wow, that's like a very concentrated like passing game, And I didn't check to see what it would look like if you threw in Goddard, but it's got to be like a crazy number. But they're obviously not like a super pass heavy team, but he basically averaged 8 targets a game. I think it was exactly eight targets a game. So it's like, yeah, I think he's like right in that range. Like he definitely got a little more involved when Goddard went out, but he seemed to remain involved even when Goddard came back. And yeah, I think all signs are pointing up for the Eagles in general. So I think he can do it.
Yeah. Dad, what do you think? Devonta Smith closer to 2021 or 2022?
Yeah, don't believe the hype on the Eagles. They're going to go backwards this year, but
no, I disagree.
But
they
anyway,
killed it in the draft.
Yeah, whatever. Since when do rookies come in and do anything? But I was pretty impressed with Devonta Smith last year, and he looked like, looks like he really stepped up when he was wide receiver 29, 9 points a game. He was a rookie, so probably trying to figure it out a little bit. Last year was his second year. He took that big jump, and he looked it. He looked the part. He has to share with AJ Brown, has been said earlier, but this guy, I would lean more towards the 12 plus points a game, so I was pretty impressed with him last year.
Especially with like Brian said, having a zero catch, 0 yard game that's included in there. So
yeah, that is always a couple of games early on where they were going, "Where's Devonta Smith?" But
the next week 2 and 3, he played well, 80 yards, 170 yards in week 3. But he was like between weeks 4 and 11, he didn't have 100 yards during that stretch. It's always funny going back and looking at like 1,200 yard receivers, and you go and look, and it's like, oh, they only had like 400 yard games or something,
Yeah.
But Dad, do you want to make a chalkboard bet that Eagles have a better season than the Lions? $10?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, Brian's going to write it up after
$10. I mean, we need to deal in increments of 20.
Right, $20 then. So better season, meaning who, if they both make the playoffs, whoever goes further. No. Playoffs concluded.
No, regular season. No.
No. We're doing playoffs included.
Now you're putting.
What do you mean? So you're telling me if the Lions go 10-7,
okay,
and the Eagles go 9-8, they both make the playoffs. Eagles go to the NFC Championship game. Lions get knocked out first round. You're saying the Lions had a better season? No.
Yeah, okay.
We're doing who goes further in the playoffs if they
20.
$20.
Lions.
Deebo Samuel, an interesting one. 18.8 points, half PPR in he was wide receiver 2 in 2021. It's crazy, almost 19 points a game. He fell all the way to wide receiver 38 last year, averaging 10.8. So he dropped by 8 points a game in 2022. Dad, Deebo Samuel, do you think he's going to be closer? Let's say, do you think he's going to average 12 points a game, or he's going to be plus 15 plus a game? What would you choose?
12 points. They seemed it kind of seems like they slightly slacked off on his running a little bit. So, I mean, in 2021, he had 8 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
So that kind of, how do we want to say it, inflated his numbers. You know, I mean, we're looking at him as a wide receiver. Also, he had 1,400 yards in reception. So he had a huge 2021 year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 8 rushing touchdowns, 1,400 yards. And, you know, he 2022, it looks like, you know, he only had 600 yards in pass reception. So he was down a little bit. So I think I'm not saying he's going to go in the tank, but I think those are probably more closer numbers. Maybe he still should be 1,000-yard receiver.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the running part, he doesn't need to run the ball so much anymore. They got, you know, CMC and Elijah Mitchell and whoever else. So I say, you know, he goes for that lower number of
12-ish points.
Yeah.
Okay. Brian, what do you think? 12 points a game, 15, 16 points a game?
I definitely say like on the lower end. And Dad kind of nailed it. Like I think it's funny because like that year where he was what did you say he finished at, 2 or 3?
Yeah, wide receiver 2.
Yeah, like that was like a crazy like end to the year too, especially like because I was looking at like kind of like his rush attempts, because I was like, it can't just all be because of that, because like Dad mentioned, he did have a 1,400-yard reception or 1,400 receiving yards. But yeah, I kind of looked at like his game log, and it looked like in the last 8 games is like where they this is of 2021. That's when they really started using him as like a running back, you know, and so he was getting basically like 7 rush attempts a game, like on average, and that's when he got all those touchdowns, more or less. And so it was kind of just like, oh wow, like that definitely like helped push him to the next stratosphere. I mean, of course, 8 touchdowns will do that. But yeah, and then I kind of looked at the rush attempts after CMC got there, and yeah, they were definitely down. Like he was averaging like 3 a game, you know. So that's definitely gonna hurt him. I think like he's like kind of in like he's in a crowded offense, which does him no favors. Like it, I mean, he will have like blow up games, you know, but so are Kittle, so is Ayuk, so is McCaffrey, obviously. So it's like it's a lot of mouths to feed. So I'm like I think he's still like a good player. But yeah, I wouldn't be drafting him like that high for sure. But I don't think he's gonna be running back, or sorry, wide receiver 39 either. Like he'll be, I will say, like a mid to low end, like wide receiver 2 is where I put him, like 15 to 24 or something like that.
Yeah, that's fair. I kind of agree. Don't think he'll get. I think we saw his best year, but I don't know. I still like Deebo as a talent, so you know, I'm gonna always bank on talent. I'm not gonna draft him where he was going last year, like second round, but if it comes down to a couple guys and it's just like, well, I think Deebo's more talented, so I'm going to take. So
yeah, he's fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Tight ends, we'll try and wrap it up a little quickly here. The first guy we're talking about, kind of interesting, Hockenson, 9.6 points a game in 2021, 10.1 in 2022, but he finished tight end 2. I guess what my biggest question is, Brian, I'll let you start. Hockenson, do you think he's going to be used more like he was with the Vikings? Do you think that's going to kind of continue that trend that he had with the Vikings? Or do you think he's going to be more like he was with the Lions?
Well, I don't know if there was like I don't know. I have to actually like look at the numbers a little more carefully, but I felt like he was like decently involved in the Lions like passing game. Like they just had like a rough go of it, like from ever since he was in. Like, I mean, he had 100 targets in 2020. He had 84 targets in 12 games in 21. So it's like I like those numbers, obviously. So he had 129 last year, and maybe it was like way more came after he went to the Vikings. But I mean, he's on the Vikings, so I imagine they would use him more like them. Adam Thielen left, but obviously we got the rookie who came in. Who did they get? Addison? Is that right?
Addison, yeah.
Addison,
yeah. So I don't know. Like, I don't think it's funny with tight ends because like when you look at like the points per games and stuff, how close everything is, where it's like there's not a whole lot of difference between tight end 4 and tight end like 15 and stuff like that. Like, but I think he's a solid 10 points per game type of guy. I wouldn't mind having him on my team for that. It just depends on where you're going to get him in the draft. What's that?
There's not many of those 10-point
right.
Yeah,
There's
only like 4. So
yeah, but I know it's a little tricky though too because that 10 points per game average. Didn't he have like 2 games where he got like 70 points total or 80 points?
Yeah, he had 2 big games. But that's part of it with Hockenson. It's like he's capable. How many tight ends can you say can put up that, right? So
no. I'm not saying like to try to take that away or anything, but I'm just saying like if you think about it, well, that's 8 games worth of average right there. So that's the equivalent of blowing up for 2 games and then basically shitting the bed for the other 6 and getting zeros. Yeah. So I mean, just to put it into perspective, that like those big games definitely influence the points per game numbers. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Because
when you do the math, he actually averaged more fantasy points with the Lions than he did with the Vikings because of that big game. So,
yeah.
But Dad, what do you think about Hockenson? Do you think he's going to repeat as like a top 3 tight end, or he's going to be more like a tight end 8, 9?
No, he should be. He should be in that top tier. Kelsey won, and but I think he's still going to be focused in the Minnesota offense. Addison, rookie wide receiver. I mean, he's probably not going to hit the ground running. So we'll see. Hockenson definitely should still be a big part of that offense. And
yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised. Like I'm looking at his game log. He only had 4 games over 10 points in half PPR.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow. Like the numbers tell kind of a different story. A lot of games, like
but 3 of them was
points and under.
Minnesota.
Where did he trade? Yeah. So and Minnesota, it looks like he was a little better, but yeah, it's kind of hard to see. But yeah, 3 of those were with Minnesota. The games with over 10 points. Sorry,
so you imagine, he gets 4 or 5 or something like that. That's pretty good, I'd say. But yeah, it is tight end. So moving on to our last tight end is Dalton Schultz, tight end 3, 10 points a game in 2021. Fell to tight end 10, 7.6 points a game in 2022. To make this quick, Dad, 1 minute, what do you think? Schultz is closer to averaging 10 points a game or 7.5 points a game?
Oh, 7.5. He's going to the Texans, and I don't have an explanation. He had a pretty good 2021 year. 104 targets, 78 receptions, but last year really dropped off. 89 targets, 57 receptions, but he's on the bottom, I think. Middle of the road tight end.
Brian, do you think 7.5 points? 10 points.
Yeah, probably closer to that. I mean, again, the spread's so small, but yeah, it does make a big difference for tight ends. But do I think he's going to get 100 targets in Houston? I mean, possibly. I mean, who else do they got? Kind of a thing. Got Tank Dell and Robert Woods and stuff.
Nico Collins, Sean Mitchie, a bunch of unknowns, basically.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll see. Rookie quarterback and everything like that. Maybe he's the safety valve. We've seen him do it, which is nice, and you don't have to pay a huge premium for him. If Hockenson, if you're drafting him, if you have to draft him in the 4th or 5th round, I bet you can get Schultz in the 9th or 10th round, and there might not be a huge. What's that?
Probably later.
Yeah, maybe, huh? I don't know. I haven't really thought about who tight end number 10 or 12 is, honestly. So
we'll check best ball real quick, but go ahead.
But yeah, so it's I mean, for that kind of difference in the value, you might be better off with Schultz as one of your tight ends. Obviously, grab a couple of them if that's what you're going to do. But
so best ball, he's going tight end 11. Again, this was updated 2 weeks ago, so I think Kincaid's probably going to be a little higher. Yeah. I mean, Kincaid's on here as tight end 12, but I probably think he's going to go a little higher than that. But tight end 11, ADP 122. So I mean, you're pretty close, I guess. So I kind of sneaky Schultz, kind of like him this year as if I'm not going to get one of those top 3 guys, take a couple dart throws. Schultz is one of those guys. If I can get him, double-digit rounds, 11, 12, throw a dart at him.
Yeah,
and we'll see. Like we said, we don't know.
Him and the rookies.
Yeah. I choose him over the rookies. I'd go Schultz over
I would
any.
too, but I would also grab a rookie.
I'd go Schultz over any rookie besides Kincaid, I think so. But anyways, we'll finish up there, and we're gonna be back. We're gonna try to put out a few episodes a week. Focus a lot on redraft now because it's dynasty season. Feels like it's the off season's kind of over-ish. We'll still do a couple here and there, but mostly focusing on redraft, talk about players, sleepers, draft strategies, all that good stuff. So, and some rankings coming out. So, like the video, subscribe. I think we're at 182 subscribers. We're shooting for 200 by June 15th. So we got 27 days to get 18 subscribers. That's less than 1 a day. I think we can do it. So, any last words, guys?
Nope. Boomer up.
Yeah. Go Eagles, I guess. So Dad will have to pay Mike.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, go Eagles.
It's going on the chalkboard.
On the chalkboard. And we appreciate it, guys. And we will catch you all next time.